All right, let's get right into this explainer. Ever feel like your paycheck just evaporates the second it hits your account? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. But today, we're combining two incredible sources to reveal the unified math behind plugging those financial leaks and building serious long-term wealth. The fascinating truth is that the people who actually build lasting wealth are really just pulling two simple mathematical levers that absolutely anyone can access. We're going to break down exactly how you can grab those levers and turn them completely in your favor.
So, here's our roadmap. We're going to hit 5 key areas: the squeeze of inflation, crossing the wealth line, the snowball effect, building a resilient portfolio, and finally, decades of compounding. Kicking things off with part 1, the squeeze of inflation, rising prices. Look, before we can even talk about building wealth, we've got to face the reality of the economy we're living in right now. Okay, wrap your head around this number. The exact same bag of groceries that cost you $20 back in 2020, that's now sitting at $25.32 today in 2025. That is a massive jump for just 5 years. Our sources show us that while the cost of literally just existing has spiked aggressively, wages, well, they've barely nudged, creeping up maybe 3.8% a year. So if you're feeling the squeeze, you're not imagining it. It is very real, and it means we have to get incredibly strategic with every single dollar. That brings us right to part 2, crossing the wealth line, redefining debt. To fight back against this crazy inflationary squeeze, we have to completely rewire our financial defense, and that starts with how we look at the money we owe. First things first, let's toss out the old myth of good debt versus bad debt. At the end of the day, debt really just means one thing. Somebody handed you money today, and you agreed to pay it back later, plus a fee. That fee is your interest rate. And honestly, it doesn't matter what you bought or if it felt like a super responsible purchase at the time. The only thing that actually matters is the interest rate attached to it, especially when you compare it to what that exact same money could be earning for you somewhere else. Let's put some names to this so you can see the real-world difference. Think about Jake. Jake's carrying an $8,000 credit card balance at a whopping 21.5% interest rate. He pays his minimums, feels like he's doing the right thing, but man, that rate is quietly sucking $143 out of his pocket every single month just in interest. Then you have Brian. Brian has a 6.5% mortgage, but he absolutely refuses to carry expensive credit card debt. Any extra cash he has, he invests it, aiming for a historical 10% market return. They're using the same financial tool, debt, but getting totally opposite outcomes. Jake's money is working against him, while Brian's money is out there hustling for him. So the crucial takeaway here is what we call crossing the wealth line, which sits right around 6 to 8%. You've got to treat any debt above that 8% line, like a 21% credit card or a 12% personal loan, like a 5-alarm fire. Attack it. Those high rates are guaranteed wealth destroyers. But once you get down into the gray zone, say a 6.5% mortgage, the math actually flips. At that point, you're usually better off keeping that low-interest debt and letting your surplus cash go to work in the market, where you're historically looking at about a 10% return over time.
Reframing this in your mind is an absolute game changer. Think about it. When you wipe out a 21.5% credit card balance, you aren't just paying a bill. You are locking in the highest returning, zero-risk, completely tax-free investment you will ever make in your entire life. Seriously, there's no legal investment on the planet that safely guarantees a 21.5% return. Wiping that slate clean, that is step 1 to taking your power back.
And here is a wild little secret. This is the exact same math the ultra-wealthy use to just keep getting richer. It's a strategy known as buy, borrow, die. They buy assets that go up in value, and instead of selling them and getting hammered by massive taxes, they just borrow cash against them at a low rate, maybe 7%. Meanwhile, those assets keep compounding at 10%, and they happily pocket the difference. It's the exact same lever Brian pulled with his mortgage, just with a few more zeros attached. Borrow cheap, earn more.
All right, moving to part 3, the snowball effect, going on the offensive. Because once that toxic, high-interest debt is gone, we finally get to flip the lever.
I hear it all the time. I don't have a giant lump sum, so why bother investing? But here's the truth. You do not need to be rich to start building wealth. As our sources highlight, when everything around you is getting absurdly expensive, simple, rock-solid consistency is your best friend. Just $35 a week. That is literally $5 a day. That tiny, consistent habit plants a seed that eventually outruns the inflation that's been eating your paycheck.
The trick here is really understanding how compounding feels in real life. Honestly, at first, it's going to feel a bit like watching paint dry. Look at year 1. Putting away $20 a week leaves you with just over $1,000. It doesn't exactly feel life-changing. But stick with it. By year 3, those early deposits and the dividends you've reinvested start forming a serious base. And by year 5, as you're pushing past $6,800, that's when the snowball really starts rolling on its own. Those first 5 years are just about laying the bricks.
Now, to survive the wild ride of the stock market, you've got to totally mute that craving for instant gratification. Our brains are hardwired for quick wins, right? So when the market takes a dive, every instinct screams at you to stop. But the massive mindset shift is realizing you cannot control the market's mood swings. You can only measure your success by your consistency. Literally, just ask yourself, did I invest this week? If the answer is yes, you are winning.
Let's jump into part 4, building a resilient portfolio, capturing steady growth. Now that we've got the mindset dialed in, where does that $35 a week actually go so it can survive inevitable downturns? Instead of chasing the latest meme stock or trying to guess the next big thing, real wealth builders look for a very specific set of traits to ensure lasting stability. You want broad diversification, meaning you own tiny pieces of hundreds of companies. You need exposure across all kinds of different market sectors. You're looking for strong historical track records, consistent dividend growth to feed your snowball, and crucially, ultra-low or even zero management fees. That way, you actually get to keep the money your money makes. Our sources highlight a really compelling 5-fund mix over at Fidelity that hits all those marks perfectly. You've got FCROX covering the entire U.S. economy with literally zero fees, FSMDX capturing growing mid-sized businesses, FITLX leaning into modern sectors like tech and healthcare, and finally FGRAX and FDGFX anchoring the whole thing with super dependable dividend growth. When you blend all these together, you're getting steady price appreciation plus a massive 15.24% average growth rate on those dividends. And remember, that growing dividend is the absolute fuel for your wealth snowball. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, Decades of Compounding, Long-Term Projections. Let's pull the whole picture together. So, what happens when we apply that simple $35 a week habit to this exact portfolio strategy over the long haul? Well, this is where the math gets genuinely mind-blowing. By year 10, you're sitting pretty at about $32,000. Fast forward to year 20, the momentum is humming and you're at $160,000. But look at year 30. That is where compounding completely takes over. Over 3 decades, that daily cup of coffee habit explodes into nearly $1 million. And thanks to those growing dividends built into those funds, that portfolio would literally be handing you about $8,000 every single month in cash alone. That beats a lot of full-time salaries. But here is the absolute craziest part of this entire equation. Out of that massive final total of $942,000, you only actually put in about $54,000 of your own money over those 30 years. Let that sink in. Over $887,000 was created entirely out of thin air by compounding gains, reinvested dividends, and just plain old time. Your money did the heavy lifting for you simply because you got it on the right side of the wealth line and let it run. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one ultimate question. Take a hard look at your finances and ask yourself, is your hard-earned money working for the bank or is it working for you? Debt and wealth are literally the exact same mathematical lever. If your money is pointed at a 21% credit card, it's draining your future. But if you clear the deck, flip that lever, and point just $35 a week into a compounding snowball, you are literally buying back your freedom. The math is sitting right there in front of you. So which way are you going to pull the lever?